Okay, so I just want to walk you through the notes first. This is going to be the definition of population density, definition of population dispersion. On dispersion, these are the three types, and they want you to draw the examples that I show you. The formula goes there. Definition of survivorship curve, examples of the three survivorship curves, and descriptions go here. Here, 4 factors that affect population size. This is the graph of exponential and logistic growth, and these are density dependent and independent limiting factors, and I will be listing all of those. So it should be pretty self-explanatory as we go through. Population density, here's your definition, is the number of individuals that live in a defined area. In other words, the city of Memphis is a defined area. How many people live in the city of Memphis? That is the population density of Memphis. Population density is exactly the measurement of the number of individuals living in a defined space. It can be calculated by the number of individuals divided by the area. So however big the city of Memphis is, per square mile over the number of individuals is the population density. So that's the formula, which you also need to put in your notes. Geographic dispersion, however, is how a population is spread out in the area. So humans tend to congregate in neighborhoods, right? So you have neighborhoods, and then you have like businesses that are separate from the neighborhoods. And so that would be more clumped dispersion, right? These are the pictures you need to draw. Clumped is literally when the population, the individuals of the population are in clumps. Uniform is when they're very evenly spread apart. And random is when they're just wherever, okay? So clumped would describe more of like animals or plants that have to live in community with each other, or animals and plants where plants where a lot of their seeds are maybe dropped in feces, so all the seeds are dropped in one place to grow. Uniform dispersion is where, that's more like a farmer would evenly distribute the corn. And random dispersion, usually for plants, is like if the wind carries it, they don't really have a whole lot. So these are the pictures you need to draw on the boxes and label them clumped, uniform, and random. So clumped is fish traveling in schools. That's what you call a group of fish together. Fish traveling in schools, lions and prides, dogs and packs. Those are all clumped. They're together. There's a population in the area that all live together. Uniform. So this is like penguins in a nest, or these seabirds, I think, and they have their nests pretty evenly spread apart so that they can each have space to grow their own little family. And random is like a sloth. You randomly find them. They move from tree to tree. They sort of either live solitary or in family groupings, but they all kind of intermingle in together. And like I said, with plants, that's going to be where like the wind has dispersed the seeds, so they don't have any control where the seeds landed. All right, survivorship curve. So this is a reproductive strategy, okay? So the survivorship curve is a diagram showing the number of surviving members over time from a measured set of births. So, for instance, age 1 to 5 years old, you have 1 die between age 1 to 5, so your survivorship is 97%. So 97% of the children that are born, basically, are going to make it to 5 years. 94% of the children born that make it to 5 years are going to then make it to 10 years, and so on and so forth. Okay, typically you are not asked to calculate the survivorship, but identify the strategy or identify the survivorship curve. All right, so we have a 1, 2, or 3 strategy. Type 1, this is where you have a low level of infant mortality and your population is older. This is a human population, okay? compared to, say, mice who have 1 million, we have 1, 2, maybe 3 babies at a time. 3 is rare. So typically we have 1 baby at a time. That baby makes it to adulthood, typically, right? So because of that, we don't have to have 10,000 children hoping one of them makes it to being an older person. We are relatively confident that the infant that we have is going to make it to adulthood. So this is common to large mammals, elephants, and the like. All right? 2, survivorship is where you are equally likely to be killed when you're an infant, or killed when you're a teenager, or killed when you're an adult. Okay? So this is common in birds and reptiles. Type 3, you have a very high infant mortality rate. So you have a zillion babies hoping one of them makes it to adulthood. And this is common in plants, invertebrates, even in like some small mammals like mice. All right, so type 1, these are humans. So if you look at the number of survivors and the percentage of the maximum lifespan, you'll see that here the number of survivors at a young age is very high, and the number of survivors decrease as you get older. Here you can see in type 2, the number of survivors, basically you have a straight line. So you have an equal percentage of dying. Here you are the most the most death in these plants and animals is happening at the beginning of the life. So if you make it past, say, age 3 or 4, something like that, you're likely to be able to make it to adulthood. So this is the graph you need to write. These are the descriptions you need to write in that chart, right? So these are the curves. This is the example of each curve that you need to put in your notes. All right, so population growth. So changes in population size are determined by immigration, so organisms coming in, and births. Both of those increase the population, right? So if we're looking at the population of Memphis, people who move to Memphis increase the population. Babies that are born in Memphis increase the population. Those two are going to cause an increase. So immigration and emigration is leaving. So people who move out of Memphis, and then people who die. All right. Those are decreasing the population. Population growth is based on available resources. So exponential growth is a rapid population increase. Exponential growth is a rapid population increase due to an abundance of resources. So these are rabbits. Rabbits are like type 3 survivorship curve. Anyway, they have a lot of babies. But if they live in an area where they have plenty of people to mate, plenty of rabbits to mate with, plenty of grass to eat, and low predation, they are going to soar. So you could start off with just a few rabbits, and in just year, you could have an exponential number of rabbits. And that is due to the abundance of resources, So they have everything they need: food, water, shelter, space, mates to mate with, low predation. In other words, they don't have something coming after it and killing all their babies. So a lot of their babies are making it to adulthood, right? So this is great, excellent resources. Logistic growth is when you have something that is limiting the growth. And so let's say it's food. There's only a certain amount of food. So if the population grows higher than available food, you're going to end up with a lot of animals dying from lack of food until you get back under what's called carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of individuals in a population that the environment can support. So once you pass carrying capacity, you are going to see a dramatic decline in the size of population over a short period of time. Okay? So you can see that as the rain increases, your population increases, right? The rain came in June, so July you had a lot more fish to kill, right? And then as the rain declined, so did the population. A limiting factor is something that keeps the size of the population down. So this is what is going to determine your carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is very important. I want to go back to this line. Carrying capacity right here, this is the maximum number of whatever population can support. So you're growing. This part right here might be exponential. Once you start to even off, this is logistic. And ideally, your population will stay right underneath carrying capacity. But if that population goes above carrying capacity, you're going to see a sharp decline then in that population. You're going to see a sharp decline in that population until we get below carrying capacity, and then we can come back up, right? So eventually, organisms are going to get to under carrying capacity and kind of stay there. All right, so a limiting factor is something that keeps the size of the population down. Density dependent is it's affected by the number of individuals in the area. For example, food. If you have only 5 bushes, you can't have 2,000 elk trying to eat 5 bushes, right? So it is density dependent. Density dependent limiting factors are predation, competition, parasitism, and disease, right? So if you have a lot of moose, or if you have a very low moose population, then eventually the wolf population is going to go down because wolf eat the moose, correct? So here you see the moose population went way down here. Well, right after that, you can see that that affected the babies born and the survival of the wolves, because a couple of years later, you have a lot less wolves. Well, when there are less wolves to hunt the moose, then you end up with more moose. Once you get more moose, then you get more wolves. So these are density dependent. Density means the amount of whatever it is. Competition for resources. So again, if you have a limited amount of food and a lot of you trying to eat that food, right, that competition is going to limit the population growth. Density independent, it doesn't matter how many animals you have. So weather events, a tornado isn't going to come in. It doesn't matter how many mice you have. When a tornado comes through, it might just kill all the mice. Natural disasters, human activities, none of that is going to matter about density, right? It's not going to matter how many moose there are if a tornado comes through and kills 50% of the moose. It really doesn't matter how many moose there were, correct? So these are limiting factors that are outside like the amount of animals or organisms in the area.